All right. So yesterday I announced the Zora project. And so today's Qualified at the Intersection is about why we have to tell our own stories and we have to find our way around traditional media. So everybody knows about the Paramount situation with Paramount and Skydance, another company wanting to merge and needing Federal Communications Commission approval, FCC approval, and the Trump administration getting involved. Many believe that Stephen Colbert his show was canceled for that deal to go through. CBS paid the Trump administration money based on a story they did regarding Trump and Kamala Harris, which many lawyers thought they would have won, but they just rolled over and settled. And the thing you see about that settling is you give an inch, he takes 100 miles. They settled, and now in order to do this other thing, you have to do something else. And that's the thing about doing appeasement with people. It's never enough. I mean, you can see that with little kids, right? When they misbehave and you appease them, and then they want to go further and further and further. This is kind of what the Trump administration is about. So, what we have since found out is that in addition to the financial money that was paid to the government, the FCC, working in tandem with the president at his behest, as if they only exist for the president's will and desire, have inserted a bit of a poison pill in the settlement with Paramount in order for this merger to go through. And part of it is they would have a bias monitor, embedded in the organization, in the new organization, that will report directly to the president of this new company, and I would assume to the FCC. And this bias monitor is going to be biased. The bias monitor is likely going to be appointed by someone from the FCC. So we'll just say the Trump administration, who we can only assume is going to complain about anything that is not conservative, anything that says anything contrary to a white supremacist narrative about the country. And this is the agreement they signed. This is the agreement they signed. Now, back in the day, there used to be these standards folks who would say if you could show an ankle, if you could be in the same bed. You remember, some people may not be old enough to remember, but back in the day on television, married couples had to be in two twin beds. On TV, they can be in one bed. And we got rid of that. And then we do have practices now. There are things you can't have on television, but having the president of the United States demand through the FCC that a bias monitor, who is not there to look at race-based bias, but is there to look at bias against the president, be inserted in a media company is just wild. I mean, it is, wow. It is, I can't say a bridge too far because it burnt the bridge down. It burnt the bridge to ashes. I mean, so this is why we have to tell our own stories. This is why we have to fund each other. We have to work with each other to tell our own stories on platforms like this, And so South Park, I guess, made it in under the wire because they got their episode out before the agreement, and I'm pretty sure the bias monitor would have reported that episode. But then I guess their feeling is we already have a lot of money, so let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice. And I really wish more people who had the resources and means would do that. It does feel at times that a lot of the advocacy work is on the backs of people who don't have unlimited resources, like myself, who have to really take bigger risks. The risks are bigger. Stephen Colbert, he's going to be fine. I don't think he should be canceled, but he is going to be fine. He could come to Substack, and unlike me having 1,500 followers, he'll have 150,000 or 1,000,000 followers and make all the money off Substack. So he'll be fine. But having independent voices that tell the story is going to be more critical than ever because they're embedding people into news organizations. They're threatening to pull people like The View off the air. I mean, overtly said they might be pulled off the air. By whom? By the administration? So you can't even tell jokes about the president. That is a fascist dictatorship. That's not like exaggeration. If you can't tell jokes about the president, if you can't say anything about the president for fear that you're not going to get your football team stadium approved. You're not going to get your merger approved. And we don't live in a fair democracy. And one thing I will say about Donald Trump is he's doing this all out in the open. I mean, it's not nothing, none of it is in the dark. It's all out in the open, right? So we know what he's doing. We can't say, oh, we didn't know. He's telling us, I'm putting a bias monitor. They gave me money. We will pull another program. That sure sounds like an admission that you pulled a previous program, which would be Stephen Colbert. And when it comes to, a lot of the laws and things around DEI, it really seems like more than being against diversity, equity, inclusion, they are against race inclusion, gender inclusion in the workplace. And they're finding a way to openly discriminate. One of the things, I just recorded my ERG training, which is going to be up tomorrow for those who are paid subscribers. As I say, I want to give you value. You don't have to pay for comments, but you'll pay for real things. So the ERG training that will be for paid subscribers is going to be up tomorrow. But as I was doing that, I was reminded of the doctrine of vagueness, which is, the courts should find laws, regulation, things that are so vague that they can't be enforced as invalid. And most of what Donald Trump is saying around anti-diversity, equity, inclusion is so vague that the lower courts are finding that. But I don't know what the Supreme Court will do. The Supreme Court is giving me Plessy vibes all day. And Plessy is the court that ushered in separate but equal. And this court is legitimately giving me Plessy vibes. So I'm worried. But generally, the doctrine of vagueness would say these things are so vague. Nobody knows what you don't want or what you can do. And consequently, people say, well, I just not going to hire any Black people because I don't want to get in any trouble. I don't want to promote any women. I don't want any questions, thereby reinstituting race-based and gender-based discrimination. Can you see how that goes? And part of this deal with Skydance is they can't do any diversity, equity, inclusion. They can't do anything around hire. I mean, what is, so that means that independent journalism, independent voices are absolutely necessary. And as a former journalist who worked in a television station for a decade, I can tell you that most local-based television journalism is, it's not what it could be. Let's just say that. We don't have time. We don't take time. It's not the kind of in-depth work that you would love to see, that you used to see in the old days. And so we just can't, we do have to rely on ourselves. We are the heroes we've been waiting for, right? We're going to have to, figure this out together, work together to scale whatever we intend to do together. And so that is why I created the Nora Project as part of Qualified at the Intersection, because people whose voices are not the voices of Black women are trying to tell our story, and they're not doing a good job. People are not saying what is really going on. The scale and the scope of the pushback of our advancement is not being reported. And by the time this tsunami catches up with people where they feel it, it's going to be too late. So, part of me feels like, yes, the Jeffrey Epstein story is super important and I'm glad we're covering it. But on the other hand, if you have all that time to dedicate to Jeffrey Epstein, you have time to dedicate to maybe showing visually how the combination of executive orders and hostility is going to impact Black folks, people of color, and women in the workplace and LGBTQIA rights. You can show that, and you can continue to move that message so that people understand what's really at stake. And what has been surprising to me is even when I put the call out for the Nora Project yesterday to hear the voices of people who've been fired, pushed out, marginalized, or just had to leave, people still feel they are the only ones. It breaks my heart. I wrote a whole book, Qualified, How Competency Checking and Race Collide at Work, so that people would not feel like they were the only ones, because they're not. It is a systematic issue that has been building and is now gaining hyperspeed. And the design seems to be to stop access and progress for Black folks, other people of color, women, LGBTQIA folks in this country, in the workplace and in society, and disregard the needs of the disabled. And it's just, we don't care. And, you see it with somebody like Pete Hegseth. Now, there's recently some reporting that he didn't want to promote a certain general. Basically, he doesn't want to promote people who know more than him, which is everybody. But this is what happens when you do promote people based on race, meaning because they are white and because of their gender, because they are men. They get into positions, and I think everybody has had this experience in the workplace. You have these folks who don't know what they're doing. They failed up. They're somebody's friend, cousin, whatever, and they end up in these management positions. They don't know what they're doing, and then they become belligerent and difficult, and nobody holds them to account, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't want to be challenged. I mean, this is the kind of workplace that Donald Trump and his administration and Stephen Miller and all these people envision we go back to. A workplace where women have to tiptoe, white women have to tiptoe around fragile white men who may or may not know what they're doing, where Black folks have to tiptoe around white people in general who may or may not know what they're doing, and we may not even be there because they decide we shouldn't be there. I mean, this is where we are. So this is why a project like the Nora Project is so important. This is why supporting independent journalists like this Substack is so important. And then, as I say, tomorrow, I'm going to be launching my ERG training, what you can still do, a detailed explanation that's going to launch tomorrow for paid subscribers, because I want to give you real benefit. I want this to be a trade-off where you're getting something substantial, not just the ability to comment, which I'm never not going to think that's weird that people make you pay to comment. I'm sorry. But I don't have 100,000 followers. So maybe if I made people pay to comment, I'd get 100,000 followers. I don't know. But so that's the state of affairs today. And we'll talk about the ERGs and what you can still do tomorrow.